Hey crafty friends, welcome to my channel. This is Kathya. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to show you 3 ways to use your embossing folders, and I am in a collaboration with my new friend Amy of Amy's Wares. Now Amy's going to show you 3 different ways to use your stencils. So I'm going to show you how I made these 4 cards in this video today, and as soon as mine is over, please hop over to Amy's channel, which will be linked down below so you can see how she used stencils 3 different ways. Now on the screen I'm showing you different pieces of card panels in different colors, and this weight is a little bit on the lighter side. It's 65 pounds, so if you do use this, make sure you either mist or rub the paper with a little bit of a damp cloth so that the paper doesn't tear. So I'm going to be showing you some different embossing folders that I used in some of my cards. I don't use all of them, but I just wanted to show them to you close up in case you wanted to find out exactly which ones they were. So these 3D embossing folders are so beautiful, and when you use a little spritz of water on them or you dampen them with a little bit of a cloth on the front and the back, it really gives amazing and very deep embossed results. You will see in this video that I use a lot of Altenew embossing folders that are the 3D version. I really love the details they give, and the designs are just out of this world. Let me know in the comment section below if you like 3D embossing folders or if that's just really not your thing. This one, called the Enchanting Vines, the 3D embossing folder, is just so beautiful in person. So the first technique I'm going to show you will combine 2 different mediums to spotlight a certain area of your embossing folder. Now I'm showing you the rectangle there that you can use to cut out a spotlight area, but you can also use different shapes. You can use a heart, a circle, or whatever you want. And in this case, I'm just going to be using that rectangle. And you can see there on the right that I cut out a piece of acetate. I actually think that's a piece of laminated folder that I had left over, and I'm going to be using that to spotlight a certain area of my embossing folder. So the first thing you're going to want to do is to tack the template on top of your piece of cardstock. Now here I'm using black cardstock, but you can use any color that you want, even white. This technique will work on anything, but you need to do this portion first before you run it through your embossing folder. So I'm using some low tack purple tape to adhere it to the back, and I'm just going to secure it on the top and the bottom. So I'm going to put that tape there on the bottom too, just to make sure it stays in place and doesn't shift, because I want a very specific spot on the top of that, on the front of the cardstock, to make sure it's centered and aligned exactly where I want it. Okay, so here is a close-up of the card. You can see that it's centered right on that card panel exactly where I want it. And I'm going to be using this makeup brush. Now, I struggled to open it up, but what I love about these makeup brushes is they come in a case. So if you get ink on your brushes and you don't want to put them in your drawer to contaminate it or anything like that, then these cases are perfect, and I'll have a link for you in the description below. I'm also going to be using glycerin. This is just glycerin you can buy at any drugstore, and the reason I like it is because it's nice, thick, and juicy right from the get-go by pouring a few drops onto my silicone craft mat. And I can take that brush and get this whole cardstock panel saturated exactly right in that one spot. It's like super quick. So I'm just rubbing in circles here, getting all of the corners. And this is going to be looking a little bit more organic, so there's not going to be a picture perfect square shape. You'll see that I'll rub some of the embossing powder off when I go to apply it. But it's really okay, because once you emboss it, that portion of the card will be completely hidden and masked by all that beautiful dimension that you have left from the embossing folder. So here I am, I'm using a Recollections champagne embossing powder, and because that ink is so wet and juicy, this goes on really beautifully. And I'm going to cover that whole center portion, tap off the excess here. And I should tell you that I did not use an anti-static embossing powder tool, which probably would have been a good idea, but this space is so centered and I didn't really worry about it, but it turned out fine. So I'm just going to make sure I have embossing powder all over that, get the loose strays off of there, and then I'm going to heat set it. Now there's one part of the card you can see on the right hand side where I had a little bit of extra embossing powder where I didn't want it. And what I'm using is a silicone tool with a tip. So it almost looks like a paintbrush, but what I like about this is if I got some medium on it or something sticky or whatever, even glue, to, use this, and I set it aside and I forgot to clean it. It's not going to stick because it's completely silicone, and I really like this tool. And if you're interested, these come in really handy when you're crafting. I will link to it below, so just go to the description box and I'll show you exactly what I used to get that stray embossing powder off. So this is always the most fun part of crafting, when you get to emboss something, and a color that looks sort of dull on your card, when you apply heat to it, it just melts and becomes this absolutely beautiful embossing powder that turns to a nice shiny color. And in this instance, this is called champagne, and I just love it. Incidentally, while I'm heating this card panel up, did you know that embossing powder can go bad? I've had some in my stash for years. I don't even want to tell you how long, but I've had them for a long time. And I wound up having to toss one because one day I opened up some embossing powder that I had in a little Tupperware container, and oh my God, it smelled horrible. So I had to toss it. Anyway, look at this gold shimmer. This is absolutely stunning. But what's really, really fun is the next part of the technique, where I show you how to run it through your embossing folder. So I'm going to be using this 3D Enchanting Vines folder from Altenew. I really love it. I'm going to center it on the card panel there so it sits right in the middle. And I'm going to run it through my die cut machine so that it embosses, and I'll show you what it looks like as soon as I'm finished. So here's the embossed panel, and look, you can barely see that crooked line anymore because of the gold shimmer, and there's so much other visual interest going on with the embossing panel. So I love this, and I wanted to step it up by just adding some gold gilding wax. And so this is the Luster Rub-Ons, and you can get a 4-pack with all the colors. I purchased this one here in a 4-pack, so I got this on Amazon, and I will also link to that below in case you're interested. But I wanted to find a gold that would somehow match what I had in the center of the panel, just to kind of bring the edges of that black cardstock together. But look at when I apply this wax just with my finger. So you want to get the wax a little bit warm so that it will apply to your finger, and then you can take that wax and then apply it directly to the card. But you can see how it brings out some of the raised edges of that card panel, the embossed panel, and I really think it adds a lot of interest that would otherwise be sort of bland, and this just kind of pulls it all together. So take a look at that sheen. I just think it ties it all together, and it's really, really beautiful in person. Okay, so I decided to finish off the card by using some die cuts called Just Leaves die set from Altenew, and these are really beautiful. So I cut 3 of those out to give it some extra dimension, and then I just placed that in the center of the card, and then I added some jewels that I've had for such a long time, and I think that I actually used them to put sequins on the back of clothing or something like that. So I had them in my stash, and that's what those gold jewels are. Super pretty. But I don't have a link for those, unfortunately, because it's been so long since I've had them, but any jewels that you have would be really pretty. So I just picked a color that corresponded with the gold in the center panel. Now I decided, since the front of the card has so much dimension, I will just put a sentiment in the inside when I'm ready to give it to the recipient. This next technique is not unlike the first one I just showed you. However, this one basically just takes existing card stock that you have that has a pattern on it. So you'll use some pattern paper and then add embossing powder to certain portions of your embossed panel. Now the next way you can use your embossing folders is to use a DIY gilding wax, and if you look at the video, I'll have it linked up in the right hand corner up above. You can go check out that video to show you how I made this one, and it's so fun. So this next technique I'm going to show you in the third final example is a 2-for-1. So I am taking a black piece of cardstock and a silver piece of cardstock. Now you watch me, I'm going to make a mistake here, and I'm kind of bummed because I wanted to make 2 cards, but I'll show you one example and then you won't make the same mistake I did, and you will have 2 cards from one cutout. Anyway, this cardstock is a little bit on the thinner side, so I'm telling you it doesn't really matter, but I stacked the black and the silver paper on top of each other, put my die cut right in the center, and then ran it right through, and I had no issues because the cardstock is on the thinner side. So I knew that they would land right in the exact same spot. And then here I'm taking a lighter weight piece of cardstock and I'm putting it to the back of each one of those card panels. And I'm going to basically swap out the black one for the silver one and the silver one for the black one. So I'm just going to switch them so that they are swapped out with each other. And again, this technique works with any die cut that you have. So if you have a heart or a circle or anything like that, you can just line it up right in the center, run it through your die cut, and then swap it out. You want to make sure that you use colors of cardstock that are complementary to each other. So like maybe a purple and a yellow, or a red and a green, that sort of thing. That'd be perfect for Christmas. But in this case, I'm just using the black and the silver. So this technique I'm just going to call the die cut inlay embossed panel. So in essence, I'm basically taking two pieces of cardstock that I cut slightly smaller than the two panels of black and silver, and I'm just applying adhesive all the way down. Now you could use like a whole sheet of double-sided stick paper or adhesive paper if you want. I'm tongue-tied today. But in this case, I just found it easier to just run some dot runner on this, and you want to make sure you get all the different parts of it so that you can make sure it's completely adhered to your cardstock, and that when you put the inlay in there and you run it through the embossing folder, it's not going to lift up on you. So I'm going to adhere this to the back, center it as best you can. Just easier if you make it a little bit smaller, then you don't have to worry about cutting off the excess. So I just cut it smaller than that. And now I'm just going to put that black piece of cardstock that I have right in the center, and I know it will fit because it was cut at the exact same place at the exact same time. So that adhesive is sticking up there, facing the camera. And I'm going to just put that black piece of cardstock right in there, center it, and press it down. And what's nice is this dot adhesive doesn't become really permanent until you put pressure on it, but that's what the embossing folder is for, and it just will make it stick down and adhere really, really well. Okay, so now I have two card panels where I have the centers of each one swapped with each other. And again, I have the sticky adhesive on the back, and I'm going to run each one of these through my embossing folder, and you'll see when it comes out, the first one turns out perfect. It's the second one that I sort of mess up. So this one is embossed because the areas on the front of the card panel are raised. Now I did the other one in a debossed fashion, and I didn't really want that, but so here it is. See how it's debossed and the back of it is embossed? I really kind of wanted the reverse, but that's okay. I will just show you how to make a card with this one, and I'll save the other one for later. So again, I thought it would be easy to tie these together, so I'm going to take my gilding wax, and this one is in silver, and I'm just warming my fingers up, or warming the wax up with my warm fingers and rubbing it on the portion of the black, because it really gives a nice little focal point, and all of the pieces tie together because the embossing folder was pressed onto the cardstock at the same time, so it really, really highlights that center area. So very quickly you can have a card made without any issues at all, and it doesn't take much time, and you get this really beautiful wow factor. So I used some older die cuts that I had to spell the word hi, and they were icky. So I decided to put some glossy accents on the top of them to make it shine, but I didn't have any left. So what I've decided to use is this triple thick from Deco Art. Now this is a gloss glaze I've had in my stash for a long time, and it's used to kind of make things shiny and all that stuff, but it also provides dimension. So I thought I'm going to just give this a try and see if it acts like glossy accents, and I was pleasantly surprised. So you're going to see me make a mess by putting it into this very small bottle with a very fine tip to it, but I wind up using a little funnel that helps make it go a little easier. Now this product is water-based, so I thought, well, why not just, when I'm making my own little glossy accents bottle, why not just put some sparkle in there? So I decided to use shimmer spray refill from Tsukuneko, and you'll see me do that in here in just a second. So what I noticed about this triple thick product is it has the same color and viscosity as Glossy Accents, and so I was pleasantly surprised to even try it. And when I added the Tsukuneko Shimmer Spritz Spray, which is right here, I added just a little bit of amount. It took my Glossy Accents dupe basically a little bit longer to dry because I added some liquid to it, but just bear that in mind. And it makes it a little bit thinner so it's easier to pour out. So if you do have Glossy Accents that's on the verge of turning but it's not quite hard yet, I would recommend putting a little bit of warm water, like a drop or two at a time, to see how it makes it smoother. So you could try that as an option. Now, typically when you work with glossy accents, or what I'm using here, you don't really want to shake it because it creates bubbles that are really hard to pop, but I let mine settle for just a little bit and it worked out just fine. And I noticed it took like overnight to dry because I just had introduced a little bit of water to it, so you may want to try just a little drop or two at a time just to see how it works. So I'm going to just show you an example of how it comes out here. Just the same sort of consistency And colors. See how it's cloudy there? It looks just like Glossy Accents, but the camera cannot pick up the shimmer in there, which is definitely there in person. So I'm going to apply this to the letters of my die cuts. Okay, so I noticed that when I was applying the faux or dupe glossy accents, I noticed that it came out really very easily because I'd add a little bit of water to it. But I also noticed that it was very easy to use and still cloudy, just like Glossy Accents is when you use that. And I could see the shimmer and the sparkle in there, and it was perfect. So if you're running low on Glossy Accents, or if you have this, just give this a try because it is a lot less expensive than to buy a really small bottle. You get quite a bit. I think this is an 8-ounce bottle, and I'll have a link in my description box below for this product as well too if you're interested. So here is a close-up of the card, and the Glossy Accents dupe has only been drying for a little bit of over an hour, but in the final result it is completely clear just like Glossy Accents, and it has that beautiful dimension that I love. Okay, so here are the 4 cards I shared with you in this video. 2 on the left I showed you how you can make them, and the one on the top left-hand corner with the bird is in another video, so definitely go check that out. The 2 on the right are the ones I demoed here in this video, and please don't forget to check out Amy's channel. She is such a doll, and you will love her videos. She's just straight to the point and has a sweet disposition. Anyway, that is it for me today. Thank you so much for watching and considering subscribing to my channel. Thank you for leaving comments. I love reading what you write. And don't forget to give me a like by clicking that like button. And I will catch you in the next video. Ciao for now.